A lot of us are scared, we're confused, we're angry, we're frustrated, and we're putting our heads down, hoping that this too shall pass, right? That if we're just going to get through the next election, or somebody else is working on this and I know it's going to change, or because it's wrong, righteousness will ultimately win. Put it out of your head, put it out of your mind. It is nothing about what we are living through right now is going to change if you aren't doing something.
Well, today is well, it's another exciting episode, is what it is. You know why? I've learned that life often happens differently, well, for ourselves and others that we interact with, well, when we show up in the spirit of helping. And I've discovered not everybody gets the same tools in life. Not everybody has the ability to communicate in a way to move and create change. And I think that's why people that have that gift come together to speak up for others, to make sure that we all get a chance at the life we want to live. And for some of us, discrimination is a big topic. And discrimination comes in so many flavors and colors. For myself, growing up as a gay man in Arizona, I'm a 1967 baby. I grew up in a time where I didn't feel like I could be myself and still feel loved the same way. So for most of my growing up days, I grew up with a cloud trying to act as if. And like, please, when you know me, is there ever really any question? But in my mind, I told myself I had to be this way. And so I'm so grateful we're getting to say hello today. That's me clapping. Yes, we have a superhero. We have Kierra Johnson with us today, the leader of the LGBTQ Task Force. Kierra, thank you so much for being such a beautiful voice, for being so powerful, for being so meaningful. So much so that we get to live the life today as it is shaped today. And a good part of that is through you and your team, Kierra. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being a voice out in these times where there are so many negative voices out there. It matters what you do, and I'm really glad to be here with you this morning.
Isn't it true? When we just said it opening, there really is a lot of negative energy out there for a lot of different people, for a few different things. But today's focus is about the community of the LGBTQ community. And Kieran, may I ask, please, for those that aren't familiar yet with the LGBTQ Task Force, can we talk just a brief moment about the organization itself? Kind of a little bit about the history and what you and the team have done throughout the years?
Absolutely. The task force is 53 years old. So we've been around a long time. And we were first founded in New York City, which makes a whole lot of sense given the birth of our movement in Stonewall. We were founded to be an organization that fights for the civil rights of LGBTQ people. And in the beginning, it was the National Gay Task Force. So we've changed our name over the years, but the spirit was the same. You know that the fight for LGBTQ people was every bit of a civil rights issue as fighting for women's rights or the rights to vote for Black people, right? Like it is a part and parcel to why our organization was founded, and we've been around for over 5 decades, which means we have evolved and been responsive to our community as it has gone through many changes. The political and cultural environment that is the United States has changed dramatically from 50 years ago, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago. And so today, the task force is really charged with engaging LGBTQ people at the center of the fight for civil rights. It continues to be that. And our focus is around the economy, democracy and care. That is really where we are centering our work, to ensure that LGBTQ people are considered, in fights that address the need to fortify our democracy, to create a community that is really centered in care, right, and interdependence, and really is focusing on the economic, well-being of our folks. Oftentimes, people don't think about LGBTQ folks as people who are in need, right, of economic stability, and that we are actually negatively impacted by a lot of the budget cuts, and policies that come out. That there is a lot that LGBTQ people can provide in terms of solutions, but also unique ways we are impacted as well.
Thank you so much. I'm throughout the day, I'm going to have goose pimples. I can already tell because there's so much love here. My love for you, for the team, for the history, for the pioneers that were there back in the 70s, making sure the voice was available. There was so much movement going on in the 70s. Equal rights, fair housing, equal credit opportunity, the ability for. It's so weird, right? I thought like women could always vote and go to the bank and get a loan. No, no. Women's rights are, oh, they're newly created somewhat when you go back, and it feels like for me a few days of yesterday. And I don't believe, Kierra, I'm pretty darn sure that we would not be as a community where we get to be today if it weren't for gorgeous people like yourself and your team and those that believed way back when in the 70s during the Stonewall era and that whole movement that we had the right to be heard, we had the right to be loved, we had the right to be employed, we had the right to have a life, to have friends. And today I'm a married man. I never thought ever, Kierra, growing up that could happen for me, that I could also be just like, well, like them. And yes, why? Because we're living on the same planet together. And I didn't grow up choosing to be different than the others. I didn't realize, as you're describing, Kierra, and I'm realizing the era back in the 70s when all of the movement was beginning, it had a lot of battle to get through. I can only imagine what the organization, the LGBTQ Task Force, went through from the earliest of 70s to get people to join them, to get people to come out of the closet, not to be scared, to be in front of the challenges that were right in front of us. And really being there anyway, that's where the goose pimples coming from. What? Because that's believers. These are dreamers that believed we had the right to belong. And how are we going to belong successfully if we don't get the right to equal rights?
It's 2026, and unfortunately, there are far too many parallels from 1976. I come in contact with people every day who felt safer 15 years ago than they do today. You know,
I
we
understand that,
could,
Kierra. I understand that.
yeah, I mean, books about us were readily available 7, 10 years ago. Now we are lucky if we live in a place where we can find books that speak to the realities, our lived realities. And you said, normal, right? Like normalcy, like everyday people. We are unfortunately being targeted in ways that are anti-human, right? They are inhumane.
Everybody's trying to design their own lives, no matter what color we are, no matter what ice cream we enjoy. We all have that same ultimate goal of being loved and loving others and creating. I often wonder what creates that separation, what creates the hate, what creates any of that behavior. Is it to feel better about the self?
I think it's a human thing, right? Like I think it is a very human thing to want to categorize people, right? To find the ways that we are different, but to also find ways that we are similar. And I think, unfortunately, there are people who realize, and it's not unique to the LGBTQ movement, and it's not unique to this time. There are people who find ways to capitalize on ignorance and fear and the need to categorize and identify difference. And they find ways to leverage that towards power. And in and of itself, that isn't necessarily scary, right? Like when we engage in interpersonal conversations, when we're at church or we're in the coffee shop or when we're in the grocery store, there are ways that we can move past that in an interpersonal way. It becomes dangerous when it becomes a tool a of an organized, right, body. So when it becomes political, right, when it becomes used as a weapon of a mass group of people to gain power, money, influence, that's when it becomes really dangerous. And that's where we are right now, right? Like, are we different? Sure, absolutely. Like, I'm never gonna say that I'm the same as somebody who identifies as a straight, white man. No, we're not the same. But there's beauty in that. There's so much, yeah, there's so much deliciousness in all of the difference of who we are, gender and where we live, and our languages and our race and our histories and our sexual orientations and our, parentage. We can be in that place of the beauty, but there are people who rather make folks fear what those differences are and illuminate and capitalize on those differences and create fear around it. And unfortunately, a lot of those people are in positions of power right now in sitting in government.
Kierra, please, I love you. I love what you said. And I feel like I fit exactly that persona you just described as a gay man, and how much safer I felt, let's say, just 10 years ago versus right this second while we're together on this podcast. My Kierra, I don't. In fact, I don't even feel safe internationally right now. I feel like there's so much focus on some of the initials of the LGBTQ. Some have it even worse, like the T, transgender folks right now. And it was just the day before the yesterday. They were wonderfully accepted. You could get your IDs. Everything could be addressed to who you want to be in life. And you know what else I love about you, Kierra? I love that you inspire people to believe differently by the power of your incredible communication, and especially when you can organize leadership into an organization that can create realized change. During the collapse of the real estate industry here in America during 2007 and 8, during the era of recovery, I ended up over that time going to Congress. I ended up having 3 speaking points that are law today that we used. I ended up being the state president for California's Lending Association, and I became an incredible leader during the recovery. And what I've learned through all of that, my Kierra, and why I've got so much emotional feeling right now is that everything is possible. And it's hard to create beautiful if you don't have ugly to work from first. Otherwise, it's just the same color. And that's the gift of ugly. Ugly creates the contrast in life to allow us to enjoy the other shades that are available. And I love you for saying that it's important to have diversity in multiple arenas, whether it's in the ice cream you eat, the food you enjoy, the color of the skin, the songs you sing, whatever it is. Don't be the same as me. Could you imagine? Everything would get generic. But here's what I learned. I learned that a voice has power, but it's hard to have powerful voice if you don't use it. So whomever you are in your gorgeous life, this is your time. What time? To stand up in your own self-belief. Your story, no matter what initial kicks it off, it's already delicious. Why? Because it's yours. Bring it out. I've learned. His name is Bill, Kierra, and he was at the big gala that year. And Bill comes up to me. He's an older gentleman, and when I say older, early 70s at the time. And he says to me, he goes, Scott. He came up to Jack. I was putting on the tuxedo. I didn't know how to do the bow tie.
I don't know how to do one yet either.
I still don't, but enough people do, and it's a nice way to say hi to people. Right? Super fun. And Kierra, he says this to me. He goes, Scott, can I share something personal with you? And I said, yes, Bill, of course. He goes, Scott, I'm an old man with old tricks, and I don't change very well. I've enjoyed the life I lived, but I want you to know that you've affected me. What do you mean, Bill? He goes, Scott, I'm an older man. I grew up with different thoughts about what the gay community is. But because I've gotten a chance to know who you are, Scott, I love you. I have a whole different mindset of what I thought the gay community was. I want you to know you affected this old dog right here. And I want you to know I love you for who you are. I love you for who you want to be. And you've really changed my mind on something I misunderstood. And I'm so sorry it took me this long in life to figure this out. But I want you to know, Scott, because of you, I've been able to change. And that's why I say to all of us listening right now, please share your story. Be your gorgeous, authentic self. Don't be scared. I know it's scary sometimes if you have different things that maybe people in your community, maybe you like country music and everybody else likes rap. I don't care. Raise that volume. Why? Because they forgot to tell you they like it too. And people are going to like you for being you, your authentic, joyful self. Bring that person out to the playground today. Kierra, when I started noticing things like what Bill told me that night, I'll never forget, I started being more authentically available to be myself.
Yes, that's right.
It's taken me quite a while, to be honest with you, to lift the cloud that I felt needed to stay present. As a business professional, I'm a mortgage broker by trade. And I've been at it since the 90s, and there are definitely men in the industry, but I wouldn't tell you it's riddled with gay men. And so I even felt in that world I had to be somewhat clouded. And when I stopped it, Kierra, oh my God, it was because I went to a conference and a great speaker talked about authenticity, Tyler Mount. And I walked away saying that message was for me. And Kierra, I'm just now willing to be my good old gay self. I'm willing to say out loud, I'm a gay man. I'm willing to flap my hands if it helps me to feel more joyful in a moment. I don't care.
It matters to live authentically. And I mean, I think about organizations that have come to be since the 1970s, right? Like, and organizations like the National Black Justice Coalition and GLISTEN, the National NCLR, National Center for Lesbian Rights. They just changed their name, National Center for LGBTQ Rights. All of these organizations and more, at the center of them is that nugget, is that seed around authenticity. How do we make sure that LGBTQ youth can live their full, young, youthful lives? How can lesbian and bisexual women live their whole, full, beautiful lives? How do Black, queer, and gay folks live their whole, beautiful, authentic, full lives? How do organizations like the Transgender Law Center, how do our trans siblings move through the world in their full beauty and thrive, right? Like, unfortunately, we're still at this place where that is just our basic human rights are being debated. And I don't mean, yeah, like and I mean that, just our basic ability to live and thrive and love and worship are being debated, and that's the piece where living authentically becomes so critically important. To what you said, we never know who's watching us. We never know who is inspired by the hand we're holding. We never know whose life was saved because we walked around looking like a butch or a femme queen, and someone, right, it didn't fit whatever box we should be in. It matters. And it's not to say that it is scary, and it's not without real reason, right? So I'm saying for some of us it's not possible, or we're not there yet, and that's okay too. But what I'm saying is that wherever we can, take a risk and be courageous to live out loud, whether that's at home or with our kids, with our grandparents, with our church deacons, with our, at a restaurant, with our bosses and colleagues. It's not for nothing. Even if you never hear back, it makes a difference. And not just for LGBTQ people, other folks who don't identify in our alphabet soup, right? It gives them it gives them a window into how big we are. We are so much more than the letter they may identify us with. We are so much more than the fear that gets lobbed onto the T or the B or the G. We are financial savants. We are orators. We are professors. We are parents. We are lovers. We are preachers. And we are dreamers. We're so much bigger than the fear that often gets associated by those who want to leverage us for power. And so it matters. Our authenticity matters even beyond our LGBTQ community.
And Kierra, as you're describing what you said, you highlighted some beautiful things again. I reminded myself in what you were sharing, it's not safe for everybody to feel comfortably strong today. And we all live in different communities. And I grew up in Arizona, and that's where I was self perceived that I had a filter. I didn't feel like I was surrounded with like minded people that loved who I was for who I was. Do you know what I did, Kira? I moved.
You were like, I'm out of here.
21 I was. I said, bye bye. Hello, San Diego. And you know what? And there's no proof it was going to work.
No.
Surround yourself with like minded individuals, and life will start feeling different. If I lived in a community that I didn't feel available to be available, I became much more available to be me, because life is about perception. And I think we become more of who we are by those we surround ourselves with. And if you're surrounding yourselves because of the community you're living in, whether you chose to be there or you were born there, just remember, the very next moment you're going to touch in life is a moment to make change. And change is uncomfortable. But magic happens on the other side of uncomfortable. And it's hard to create the magic if you don't create the change first. I'm telling you, yes, you can. Who? Dreamers. What dream? Whichever one you're playing with. And if those around you don't tickle your dream, filter them out. It can be hard to say goodbye, but it's wonderfully delicious when you do. Why? It's hard to make space available in the amount of time we get in life if we have it cluttered with people that bring us down. It might even be your parent. It might even be your brother. It might be an aunt or a grand. It might be somebody you grew up and were trained to love. But somewhere in that love, they don't love you for the version of who you want to be. They love you for the version they expect to see you as.
A friend of mine, David Johns, has this, instead of talking about coming out, like how queer people come out, right, to whoever, he kind of has shifted the perspective of inviting people in, right? So, which I love, because it takes the it's it really is like, do you deserve to be invited into this life that I am living and that I have for myself? And that it's kind of what you're speaking to. It's, there are people in our lives where it's like, do you deserve to be in my life, right? Do you deserve the trust? Do you deserve, right, the vulnerability? Do you what have you done to have me invite you into this beautiful life that I've created for myself, or that I want to live? And I love that so much. And it also, it creates a space to decide when and where people enter. So for my father, for example, he wasn't ready for a while, and then he was. It's like, and so at a certain point, I could invite him in a little bit, right? Then I could invite him in more. Then I could invite him in more. And my father, who's since passed away, became like my biggest advocate and one of the biggest advocates for LGBTQ people. And you know, he we our relationship grew, and as we talked more and as I was able to invite him in more, we had a really intense conversation where he broke down in tears, and he said, I'm ashamed and I'm embarrassed at the pain I must have caused when I was in the military. Because for him, he was a young dude in the military and had all kinds of things he would say or do, for someone that he thought was feminine of center, gay or not, right? Like, and he broke down because he it wasn't just about loving me. He got to a place where he was willing to acknowledge the pain, right, that he caused people, and that he was ashamed of that, and not that he was absolved of that, but the level of calling in and the level of transformation that he could get to, where it wasn't just loving me despite being queer. It was an understanding of how his actions negatively impacted people that were other people's loved ones. You know what I mean? And taking responsibility for that and understanding the pain, right, he caused. And so it's possible, right, to move people from, not with us to being more and more with us. And that's not everybody, right? But there's an opportunity there.
The goose pimples are back through my whole body, Kierra. Your story, I think, is so powerful. And I think there's so many of us that have an experience that might sound somewhat similar to a family member when we came out and they found out. But my Kierra, what I heard is that dad changed, but you stayed authentic. And it was your authenticity dad was able to step inside of.
That's right.
And when he stepped inside, he was able to reflect. And it wasn't just the next minute after he found out. No, it took time. And my Kierra, part of why the goose pimples are everywhere is I think dad was somewhat like Bill and being from a different generation. And we are who we are by those that we grew up around. It shaped us to understand the words we use, the meanings the words mean to us. And if everybody was making fun of that person, we did the same. Yes, we did. Why? Because we wanted to fit in. And they were all doing it, so we were all doing it. So we used a lot of horrific words to somebody that was different, because that's what we did in the back thens. And then because we did it, well, we believed it. And it's hard to recreate self-belief in an instant. May I please those listening to us pretty please hear Kierra's gorgeous story? Here's what I heard in your story, my Kierra. Never stop believing that you can be yourself. Stay in your self-belief. Don't rush the other. Love has a way of finding the path. Sometimes the path is longer. The road can be a little bit longer than the other ones. Everybody's early life designs were created for them. And if we're having an upset event because we're one of the LGBTQ initials and our family found out and it's really a strong disconnect, please just know it's not us. It wasn't us that the disconnect is. It's their story of what that means, but for them.
That's right.
Whatever somebody's feeling, those feelings belong to them. And remember, even if they don't feel delicious to you receiving their feelings, well, that's the contrast in life. Could you imagine if every moment was the one we designed? It would get beige so quickly, and I don't think any of us want pain. Of course not. However, pain allows us to understand what we don't like. And it's important to have that understanding as well as the one that we do like. And what I heard in what you said, Kierra, and for those listening, please keep believing in yourself. It's your own self belief that the other person will see over time. Remember when you broke up with that person you loved one time, dated, and it didn't work, and you were depressed, maybe stopped eating, or even went the opposite, ate more?
Girl.
Time is a healer. Time heals almost everything. And when we get on the other side of the painful event window and we learned we're still living and breathing and it's still behaving, we're more available for the next one later. Just know if you're visiting with us in this podcast and you're in a life event right now that doesn't feel terrific, please, maybe that's one of those moments in life that are triggering amazing change that's waiting to be unlocked just minutes ahead. Remember, it takes time to create something that's different, that was misunderstood just before. Let love give time. And remember, if the person doesn't find the path to reconnect, well, that's okay. Remember, that's their life. And sometimes we're not designed to be in everybody's life forever. We're just designed to be in our own. So live your dreams, live your life, even if they're not easy to grab. Stop doing it alone. What do? Well, move. Can I ask, as you are working through the color of today, it seems to me that we're going a little bit backwards, as you said. I feel that way too, as it relates to freedoms for all of the initials of that community we're all a part of. What can we do? How can we come together right now, Kierra? How can we make a difference from our own living rooms that we're at? What actions can we take as just people, even allies, even somebody who's maybe a parent that has a child that's confused? How can we show up differently to matter, Kierra? Because I think showing up right now is the invitation.
The easy answer to that is whatever you're doing, do 10% more, at least, right? A lot of us, and I hate to say it, but it's true. A lot of us know that what is happening around us is not okay. A lot of us are scared, we're confused, we're angry, we're frustrated, and we're putting our heads down hoping that this too shall pass, right? That if we're just going to get through the next election, or somebody else is working on this and I know it's going to change, or because it's wrong, righteousness will ultimately win. Put it out of your head, put it out of your mind. It is nothing about what we are living through right now is going to change if you aren't doing something. And it could be as small as $10 a month to an organization that you believe is doing change work, right? That is building power for our community. It could be volunteering, right? Your time, right? Your energy, your expertise. It could be actually working, right, with organizations like the National LGBTQ Task Force to get LGBTQ folks educated about what is going on in their community and nationally, how it impacts us, and what to do to actually leverage power to change it. One of our biggest campaigns is Queer the Vote. We fundamentally believe that if LGBTQ folks are in the political machine, if we are voting, if we are engaging in ballot initiatives, if we are running for office, if we are commenting to our legislators about what is and isn't working, that we can leverage our money and our people power to make change. The problem is the majority of us actually don't vote. We are becoming a huge part of the voting population, but we actually, it doesn't matter if we can vote if we're not voting. So we've got to engage in that level of work. But I must tell you, voting is the minimum. That's got to be that's a low bar. We have got to actively be doing more. And so I invite people again, come to the National LGBTQ Task Force website, the task force on social media. We've got tons of partners. You don't even have to partner with us. Like, there are local organizations like Equality California, right? You know what I mean? Like, there are so many organizations right here in this state. But I would also encourage you, in addition to your local work, find a national org. It might be National Center for LGBTQ Rights is right here as well. But we welcome you to join us in the work of creating change, both locally and on at a national level.
I love everything you just said, Kierra, and that's true, isn't it? Because remembering all of us have different gifts. Of course we do. Otherwise, we all have to be different. Kierra, what I heard is a great way to show up, and it's really true. And I heard too, and I heard a lot of invitation and everything. And please, what a great excuse to do it now. For those listening right now, when we're done, take action. You know what I've learned? The biggest cost in life we'll ever take is cost of inactivity. Might today's invitation be that delicious? Might you go right to the National LGBTQ Task Force and start participating with dollars? If you can't participate with time or anything else that you might have available, even if it's only $10, you heard Kierra, it's true. Why? Because dollars move politics. Dollars empower travel. Dollars empower the lights to be on tomorrow. It's hard to be heard at the table if nobody's there sitting. And how do you get somebody to sit at the table of change? You send those $10. I hope you'll do more than 10. But my goodness, can you imagine, honest to goodness, the power of $10 compounded by many? Kierra, we're so lucky to have you at the front table. Thank you for staying committed. If I'm correct, you've been with the task force since 2018 and been giving even many more years than that. You're a giver. You're a leader. You're a lover of life. And you inspire those all around you. And I do anything that will empower you to do that further.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kierra. Kierra, can I ask one last question, please, for those listening to us right now? And if there was something you needed them to know, and we only had a minute with them, but they need to hear this message no matter what they're going through, what's that one message that could really bring effective change?
Perfection is not a prerequisite for leadership. We impact people everywhere we go. And sometimes we get in our own way, thinking that we have to be perfect in every way before we are able to make impact. And that is doing us harm. It is doing our movement harm. It is doing our community harm. Perfection's not even possible. And so get out of your own way. Get out of your own way and lead in the way that you know you can.
Kierra, thank you so much. May I ask you, please, Kierra, for those who are just now learning about the task force, how do they find? We're going to have everybody. Everything will be in the notes of the podcast. But Kierra, a lot of people are just listening, maybe driving and not looking at us. How do they find you at the task force? How do they find you online, please?
It's so easy. Thetaskforce.org. And the task force is our handle on social media. So if you are an Instagram savant, if you love Facebook, if you love threads, the task force at the task force is where you'll find us. So super easy. If you're listening while you're driving, well, that's the easiest thing to remember.
The task force. And that's you when you get home, silly you, going right online and hitting follow so you can stay in the action. And it's nice to be invited. And we're not just invited by just anybody. We're invited by Kierra Johnson herself, the leader of the National Task Force, and really, really bringing in a change. Isn't it awesome? Well, to know that people like you, Kierra, are out here really, really making sure that we all have a chance to live the life we'd love to have, to make sure that we're having the right to dream boldly, to believe boldly in the dreams we create, and then invited to show up and bring change to help other people do the same thing in their lives. And may I ask, Kierra, on the taskforce.org, when they're there, is that where they can sign up to volunteer?
Absolutely. There are all kinds of ways to get engaged. We have an organizing committee meeting. It's a digital virtual meeting. A lot of folks are trying to find ways to take action in their hometowns, in their cities. We're doing an organizing committee meeting soon where folks can just call in and listen to what's happening nationally and figure out how to plug in locally. Are If you're looking to donate, there's an easy donate button on the website. But yeah, you can find out all kinds of things that are coming up. We've got our Winter Party Festival, who those who like to be on the circuit party, trajectory. We've got Winter Party coming up at the end of February in Miami, Florida. In Creating Change, our annual meeting, some call it the annual gay city making. We do our festival. We just ended in DC last month, but 2027 is going to be in Louisville, Kentucky. So plenty of time to plan.
Oh, isn't that fun? Well, that's invitation. And that's you having a blast this year and participating next year. And we sure had a blast getting to visit with you today. Kierra, I have been counting the days until we could visit. And that will be me logging onto the taskforce.org, donating and participating. And thank you to listeners out there participating and supporting community. Even if it's not your community directly, your dollars affect and they work. And life is better when we surround those that love us. You don't have to be like us, but just love us for who we are. We love you for who you are. Let's be different together. And that's you and I believing bolder. So thank you so much for being today, Kierra. And thank you for sharing today's podcast with your friends, letting them hear they have the right to be beautiful, and let them know they have friends. They just met two new ones, Kierra and Scott. We'll be here to say hello. And yes, you're beautiful. And yes, we absolutely love you. And anyway, can't wait to visit with you on the next episode of Believe Bolder. And thank you again for joining us, Kierra. You're amazing.